United Parcel Service is heading back to the bargaining board as it plans to resume talks with the Teamsters Union, saying it is ready to increase its offer to avoid a strike before they hit the contract negotiation deadline on July 31st. UPS Vice President of Communication Glenn Zakara said in a statement, "We are prepared to increase our industry-leading pay and benefits, but need to work quickly to finalize a fair deal that provides certainty for our customers, our employees, and businesses across the country." According to Yahoo News, talks between the UPS and the labor union, which represents 340,000 shipping company employees, paused for 2 weeks following July 5th after each side reportedly accused each other of walking away from negotiations.
The workers have already authorized a strike if a deal is not reached by July 31st, which is the day the current UPS Teamsters contract expires. Teamsters President Sean O'Brien reportedly told The Hill that the economic model must change, and UPS needs to start handing over more of its profits to improve the working conditions of its employees. If the workers go on strike, it could lead to more than $7 billion in economic losses in 10 days, according to Yahoo News. Now, folks from inside UPS have said that they would need to reach a deal by July 5th, so that would be about a 5-day strike. But really what's going on here is you have this huge corporation that has about $13 billion in annual profits. And they're saying that they can afford to increase working conditions for their employees, many of which collapsed and died in the heat last summer. So I'm sure when we have extreme temperatures again this year, we're going to see more problems caused by UPS just refusing to provide air conditioning in many trucks in places like Southern California and Scottsdale, Arizona, where we had drivers collapse. That's just the bare minimum of a safety consideration for a workplace where you have these huge box trucks that workers have to drive all day in extreme heat. And it would not cut in dramatically to their $100 billion in revenue and $13 billion in profit. So when you have Teamsters President Sean O'Brien saying the economic model must change, I think that's exactly what he's talking about. Why are they prioritizing profits and returns to shareholders when workers are literally dying on the job because of the working conditions they force them to drive in?
Yeah, I agree. It is the bare minimum to make sure that these drivers have air-conditioned vehicles. That would seem like a no-brainer to me if I were running a company, but I guess I'm not soulless. And it definitely seems to me like the strike is more about the working conditions and the pay, although they are asking for an increase in pay for part-time workers. I believe the starting point for an hourly wage for a UPS part-time employee is between $16 and $17, which I don't think on its face is unreasonable. That's about $35,000 a year if my math is correct. And that was basically what I made as an entry-level journalist my first year in DC. And this is technically an unskilled labor position. However, the labor market is really tight right now, and real wages have not gone up in the US in a long time. And so I definitely understand wanting to increase that at least by a few dollars an hour. That makes sense to me. And it looks like, Jessica, this might be a hot strike summer because UPS is not the only group of workers that is looking to work with their union to potentially go on strike. We also, of course, already have the Writers Guild. It looks like the United Auto Workers might go on strike, Starbucks, Yellow, which is a shipping company, I believe, that works with Walmart. There's estimates that as many as 650,000 American workers could go on strike this summer. So this kind of thing looks like it might be contagious. This really does seem like sort of the perfect avalanche of post-pandemic labor policies and labor conditions leading workers to demand more.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that when we see wages stagnant, real wages stagnant since the 70s, when you adjust for inflation and when you assess purchasing power, we haven't seen workers have an increase in their quality of life since the 70s. Of course, they're going to be in a condition where they're ready to strike at this point when we see record inflation. You can't have wages remain stagnant and have record inflation. You can't increase prices and expect to be paying the same wages to your workers. The consumers are the same people who work for your multinational corporations. Something's got to give. who's going to pay for the goods and services if you're not paying your workers to have the dollars to put back into your pocket? It just doesn't make sense. You can't have extraordinarily high profit margins and huge returns to your shareholders and have a functioning economy. That is the economic model that needs to change. You need to pay your workers more and not prioritize the shareholders and live quarter by quarter. You need to pay your workers enough so that they can continue to purchase the goods and services that you are selling as a company. It's basic microeconomics. And the way that they framed it, that the labor market is too hot somehow and that workers have too much leverage right now, is absolutely absurd when corporations have record profits. The math just doesn't add up.
We also see that over the past 10 to 15 years, delivery workers have become increasingly important in American society because of the level of e-retail and just people shopping online more than ever. Malls are dying basically because nobody shops in person anymore. And so it definitely makes sense to me that if UPS invests in its workers, they might be more productive, which could lead to increasing company profits. And as you mentioned, also workers spending more of their money in the economy and giving back to probably UPS, honestly, because a lot of people will use that money to purchase more online goods. So this is, I think, probably a long time coming for these UPS workers. And we also have to consider that if Americans are purchasing more goods online, requiring more deliveries, that means people are working longer hours, and UPS has to hire more people to work for them. And so making sure that they are attracting people with good salaries, good working conditions is going to be really important for them anyway. So they definitely have to take this potential strike seriously and come to the negotiating table with something that is attractive to the union.
Yeah, I think they've done a bad job trying to frame this strike as something that would be the fault of the workers if the economy experiences those $7 billion in losses, if the strike happens and goes on for 10 days. It's absolutely the fault of UPS. They have been negotiating for months, and they say that they won't be in a position for the strike to continue beyond July 5th. Why did you allow negotiations for a new contract to go on this long if that was the case? And so the way that they framed it as workers would be tanking the economy rather than UPS absolutely can't afford to increase working conditions and should, not only because they have $13 billion in profits last year, but because it's the right thing to do when you have workers collapsing. Not only that, but when you consider the technological advancement argument, that is what explains productivity increases despite wages being stagnant, I would argue it's all labor. It always has been. It was workers that created the technology that allows us to be more productive. But also in the case of UPS specifically, the way they've employed technological advancements is really tracking their workers delivering the packages and how long it takes from a package to be scanned that it was removed from a truck and scanned that it arrived at the doorstep. And they have been very adamant that the workers that they have need to take the most efficient route steps-wise to minimize the time it takes to deliver each package and maximize the amount of packages they deliver per day. So they've used technological advancement to make their workers work harder and be more productive. So if anything, the workers deserve a pay increase at UPS. We can make a different argument for other companies, but UPS specifically, that technological advancement and that productivity increase is also an increase in the quality and quantity of labor that the workers are doing. They absolutely deserve a pay increase. And so the way that UPS has framed this as, the workers are tanking the economy, no, it would be UPS's fault if a strike were to cost the economy $7 billion because they can afford to, and they should increase the pay and the quality of work for their employees.
The amount of strikes we're expecting to see this summer will definitely be a hot political topic too, because we'll have to see whether Biden lives up to his promise of being a man for the working people. And if Trump is able to capitalize, if he fails to do that, Trump is already trying to get the United Auto Workers Union to back him as opposed to Biden because of Biden's push for electric vehicles, which the UAW has used as a reason to withhold its endorsement. So a lot of interesting developments that I'm sure we're going to continue to follow here at Rising. We'll be right back.